Webb telescope that they are saying is getting images that they have never gotten before, and that people have been waiting for a lifetime. So I don't have you heard about this James Webb telescope? You know what I'm talking about?
I haven't had a chance to look into that,
Okay,
but
okay.
I'll look into it and then I'll get back with you on it so
Mm,
I can be up to speed on what it's talking about. But if you think about it, when they launched the Hubble telescope and
mm,
it was sending pictures back, it was pictures that they had never seen before,
mm,
from deeper in space that is closer to the sources of light that is taking pictures of.
mm,
Right.
mm,
So it was the same thing with the Hubble. And before that, it was a ground telescope in the Vatican called the Lucifer lens.
mm, mm,
Right. Now, earlier you mentioned the name of Lisa Channel, the Matrix Unveiled, ties
mm,
right into what you told me you wanted to discuss tonight, this holographic universe
mm.
and the infiltration of the training universe and being corrupted by adverse forces.
Indeed, because I thought this was Big Mama's plan. I thought Big Mama said, I'm going to create a universe so I could discover more of myself because I am the all that is. So, in order for me to discover who I am, I'm going to create this universe. And through this universe, I could discover who I am. And it seemed like things went left or something like that. So, got to talk to
Well,
you about that.
if you really look at it, the reference is all things come together for the
Rod, that
greater
sound,
good.
you got to come in and out. That sound when you
Sound now?
sound better.
Okay, where was we at?
I was asking you about the Big Mama and her plan and how it went
Oh
left.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was telling you that the quote is all things come together for the greater good. So whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, some kind of way we got to salvage the uselessness from it and use it as part of putting together the grand plan. In the secret societies, the grand plan is called the Great Arcana or the Great Work. And the great work is to teach man how to become what we call the perfected man. This is the Leonardo da Vinci painting of the universal man, right? The painting is symbolic of the mirror images of the ego to the soul. So the ego is the self that the society create for you as a autopilot version in case you don't use your free will, you'll be on autopilot
Right.
like an extra in the video game.
Hmm.
So then you have to follow what's called a predestined path. Before we all come into this matrix, we know what's taking place before we come here. The trick is to receive the amnesia to try to remember under the harsh conditions how we became to be here where we are today, right? And the inquisitive mind is going to look at the structure of creation. The structure of creation is a torsion field. The human body is energetically a torsion field, and the globe Earth is energetically a torsion field. The solar system with the sun at the center is still another torsion field,
Hmm.
right? And all of these torsion fields is energy folding in on itself in the name of some stuff called love.
Mm. Mm.
The love energy tempers the dark energy of the chaos beings that we are. If we don't learn to harvest the love energy, the chaos being becomes destructive to the society at large. They become the monsters in the video game that we going out to go shoot, right? Because they terrorizing all of the players in the game. So without an opposition, you will never know how high you can attain in wisdom, because you have nothing to compare it to and nothing to test it against, right? Which is the same with the principle for a hologram. You got to have two fixed points that scan in motion in order to generate the holographic image, right?
Mm.
So I told you before, the moon
And a Dark Knight satellite.
are on the same um, rung, but they never collide,
Mm.
right? So this would be like a dual projection system in order to activate us into the simulator,
Mm.
right? The way I'm seeing it, looking at it, like drawing my perception view out into outer space, right? It would appear that we somewhere else, and that we are using these avatars on Earth to learn something, which
Mm.
goes to the ancient doctrine that Earth has always been a school.
Mm.
This is the X-Men Academy for the gifted,
Mm.
right? So the dark and horrid conditions we experience is polishing the 666 carbon code under the pressure and temperature of the oppression in order to turn the coal into its most pristine form as a crystal. And
Mm.
this crystal we know to be a diamond,
Mm.
right? It's the same thing we doing training in this simulation, right? Now, we never know that there's a game at the top of the creation of the construct, and it's called the mastermind game,
Mm.
right? The mastermind game is when you're able to use your psychic abilities to influence the physical world with spiritual um, um, warfare.
Mm.
In the spiritual sense, you fight to find balance in the dark aspect of creation, the 666 carbon, to generate the 999 ether in the as above, so below,
Mm.
right? So you got 666 on the ground when it manifests in the human form as a melanated being. But the melanin specific that is required is in the reticular formation of the brain. Dr. Richard King write about it. He calls it, or call it the black dot,
Mm.
right? Um, and it's written about as the gateway in the Bible, as narrow is the way, open is the gate, or something similar to that. That's not an exact quote,
Mm.
right? But we understanding that there's talking about a gateway. Like right now, the image that you sitting in what's called the sun seat, because your head is dead center of the sun,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And right.
Mm.
So you come in as the chief in a full feather regalia in order to have this conversation on the matrix, because we have to know what's going on in order to break free,
Mm.
right? All of this stuff is part of what we call the game of the gods,
Mm.
right? The game of the gods is the mastermind fifth dimensional chess game.
Mm.
The goal is for us to learn the rules of the game as they are scattered out in the physical world, in the different rules of the elements that make up the structure of the world. Like in the society, um, Monopoly tells you about the banking system. So learn the rules to Monopoly, then you understand how the banking system is
Right.
monopolizing,
Right. Right.
right? But you also got to be able to read the words as anagrams, right? As contractions, And the long form, short form, etymologically,
Mm-hmm.
colloquially, which is the common language usage of the same word. And when
Mm-hmm.
you start matching up the frequency that generates, it changes it from you seeing a word to you reading it as a frequency over
Right.
the lifetime of the word,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a subconscious function of the mind that automatically takes place. All you have to do is your due diligence and study. And as you activate different parts in the mind, you bring these things into play in resolving the problems in the 3D world so that you can manifest from your God self your best life.
Mm-hmm.
The one who can pull the most people in pursuit of their best life to agree that we all should be able to live our best life creates a critical mass of people who rebel against the side of the society that say that you have to live your life according to the conditions of a corporate legal fiction.
Mm-hmm.
A legal fiction can never generate a society to satisfy the soul of an infinite being. So it's going to create defects at a low vibrational level that can
Mm-hmm.
be corrected from a higher vibrational understanding at that level,
Right. Right.
right? So when we take the mastermind test, they tell us it's a board game. So rules are spread out in the board games. Learn the board games. And is told in a nursery rhyme. Wherever you hear rhymes spoken, keys are given in secret in the public domain, in your face, behind your back.
Mm.
Because if you can read the music, the story can be told without two people ever meeting face to face in
Mm.
order to relay a message across time and space.
Mm. Okay.
Right? So
Mm.
what we doing is we monopolizing the nature of a hologram,
Mm.
right? The hologram, the micro particle of it, is all of the same information as the entire hologram itself. So when we look at the construct, we know that we are coming from a light formation called Metatron's cube.
Mm.
Metatron's cube is talked about as the star of life in the book of in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth.
Mm.
And we know the star of life to be a 3D geometric formation of the Magen David or the Shield of David.
Mm.
But that's the false part because it's actually the seal of Solomon. And the 5 point star, the pinnacle, is the seal of David. And David is the king of all kings. And the king of all kings left his kingdom to Solomon. And Solomon was the wisest of them all. And now one wiser than Solomon comes. That's what the book say. So the riddles that they gave us to unravel the mystery is tied up in the story of Solomon and his pursuit to wisdom, and it ties directly into the hero's journey of the great heroes of the ages in the mythologies. So while they was giving us his story, our elders was putting together mythologies that held mysteries that concealed my story, and my story is the rules of engagement in order to reclaim the kingdom for the righteous and to remove the imposters from the land. And so when you follow the blueprint, and the blueprint teaches you growth and development, and in your growth and development, you start to realize that you can conquer your vices. And when you conquer your vices, you have developed to a level of self discipline where you can now be fit to teach self discipline beyond the reaches of the self because you did the self work. the battle with the dark side of the self, the chaotic self that we need to temper with the golden heart in order to make it shine in a righteous formation in order to guide others. So that's why I say, keep not your candle under the wicker basket, but let your light shine that the world may see it. In other words, you have to tell what you know that's going to benefit the most people if you understand what you know and how the people can benefit from it. So the rules that developed from learning the board games and the meaning of the words and the meaning of expressions and how to read the art in the community, which became reading the graffiti that was written on the wall. And the book said, and he was reading the writing from the wall. The graffiti tells me where the tribes identified from and how I can recognize them on the land. They
Mm.
call it tagging,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the tagging is the writing on the wall that's written in the symbolisms that tells us which tribe is in which part of the land because we didn't used to fly flags. We used to rock totem poles that gave the same information that the tribes give off today in the graffiti that they call the tags. And the tags identify the connections across the land and who's related to who and who belong where at the close of the age. So it all tells itself. So you don't have to tell the story. You can just read it from the script that's written in creation, or what we say was written in the hieroglyphs or the Medu Netter. And the Medu Netter is the words of God, the words of the Netter, which spoke things into fruition, which means they gave the weight and density to the words that empowered the throat chakra to exercise the exceptional insight, as Rand Karinga wrote, the Husia, authoritative utterances, exceptional insight, which allows the people to see deeper into themselves in order to find their way from freedom from the bondage of an artificial system masquerading as a government. I hope I wasn't too much at one time.
Nah, I mean, whew, wow, that was now I'm just sitting back learning and listening. Definitely powerful. Let me ask you this, brother. So, we are, let's say we are pre-creation deities, before creation, before the sun, moon, and stars, as I believe the most honorable Elijah Muhammad taught. Um, what relationship, what was we doing before creation? What was our purpose before, or did we just exist in this void before creation? Was it boring before creation? Talk to me about life pre-creation for the primordial beings.
Okay, so when we talk about creation, we're talking about the three-dimensional matrix and the Big
Yes.
Bang scenario
Yes.
in the sudden emergence of physical matter
Mhm.
into existence that people may exist as a physical being,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, so what we looking at is a grand design,
Mhm.
right? The grand design, you have to be outside of the creation if you are the creator,
Mhm.
right? But in this case, the creation takes place within the self,
Mhm.
right? So remember, the torsion fields are cycles within cycles folding in upon themselves.
Mhm.
We are torsion field like the apple in the hologram.
Right.
We just a part of the whole. So before creation, we was outside of the hologram. We were pure consciousness,
Mhm.
right? And as pure consciousness, we was what you call a whole like being.
Mhm.
In modern times, they call it a spirit being, right? The whole like being is the part of the self that is projected into the physical form that animates you as your body goes through the process of metabolism,
Mm-hmm.
the burning in the breath.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to inhale oxygen in order to exhale the carbon as it is consumed. It's a, it's an energy exchange taking place at every level because the same process of energy conversion that the human body goes through, the atom itself goes through the same process. And when we draw out and look at the universe, it goes through the same process. So when we examine the self, we looked at what we made of at our simplest levels, the cellular level. At the cellular level, we made of crystalline amino acids in a double helix with a sizable portion inactive called junk DNA. And we understand that the unveiled matrix is the matrix in the mitochondrial, which is the powerhouse of the cell. It become a step down capacitor when you condense stardust into a human body in order not to cause spontaneous human combustion because too much light will burn you from the inside out if you can't control it. So the conditions in the person's life is according to their temperament, and it's to temper, as the temperance card in the tarot, their ego, so that it can be purified to facilitate the full um, embodying of the higher light body into the physical form without the chaotic resistance of the carbon based ego, right? Once the whole light being becomes conscious in the physical body, your awareness of the entire hologram, you see it. So the scientists explain it using physics and metaphysics. The mystics use mysticism and uh, what's that other term? The mystics use mysticism and metaphysics to teach the same thing. Now, when you look into the human training process, every field of learning, when you get to a certain level, you end up into some form of metaphysics, quantum physics, or mysticism, or something of that sort, what we call the occult. The occult is the things that the average layperson will never have the time to properly consume to activate those faculties of consciousness that's at rest within that person, right? Because the humdrum of the day to day life is the distraction so that somebody else can harvest their energy. And it's like you over hijacking another person's avatar in a video game,
Indeed.
and you making their avatar do what you want them to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? The only way to remedy that is to find all of the what Bobby Hemmings talked about, spirit artificial, right? He said if in one of his lectures he said this counterfeit spirit is still on the earth, but it was here long before what they call white people. And he said, I'm gonna tell you something else. And this was a shocker for me. He said that these folks, they look just like us. Half of them still in Africa to this day, doing that motherfucking destructive conjure work in order to steal the blessings of the righteous and subjugate them in order to hijack their avatars. So then, in computer terms, they put in a hard drive that holds um, a series of binary codes that clears out the bugs in the computer and call it virus protection. This become the old souls that understand how the system worked from its creation, because the old souls was there from the earliest creation. And this takes us to the Lovecraft Necronomicon, and the story is told as a fiction, but it's actually the ancient conjure, and it actually is a living sigil packet, and how to activate it and use it the same as you use an app on your phone, except you using a spiritual app in order to develop a function in the physical realm from the spiritual realm that you already supposed to be tapped into.
You talking about H.P. Lovecraft?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, right. Damn, this powerful, man.
So they scattered the pieces around. My job was to find the scattered pieces and bring them all together. And people came from far and wide to give me little pieces to the puzzle, right? And I had to keep track of all of the pieces to the puzzle in order to put it together. So my mother preloaded me on doing puzzles when I was little, because she used to always want me to do puzzles with her,
Mm, excellent.
right? So I see the puzzles in all forms now, and now I can read the ticker in the matrix, so to speak. So when I be talking about stuff, I be talking about it like I'm reading that ticker from the matrix.
Mm. Mm. Well, well, in terms of, let me put the camera back. Yeah, like I said, I'm just, I'm amazed in listening to you speak, my brother. Always amazing information when you're on here. Once again, shout out to everybody that is in the building. Make sure you hit the like button. We have an amazing show so far, and we're gonna continue. We'll be on here for about half an hour more, 45 minutes. So enjoy yourself here while we're here, family. Rod Hayes. So I asked you about what we call Big Mama. Now you talk a lot about Inky and Lil and the Anunnaki. Um, these lesser gods, since we all come from this infinite intelligence, where did they get their jealousy from? Where did they get their envy from? Where did they get these traits from? Being that we all come, we're this hologram. You said the piece of the hologram contains all hologram, so we're just as we got the same amount of power as the entire hologram. I mean, we just appear to be small, but we're really big in stature. Where did they get this inferiority complex from, Rod Hayes, to do all this shit? Because they
It's
seem to be intelligent.
the same thing as to ask in the Sega Genesis game. Mike Tyson is Ironhead,
Mm,
and he the hardest character in the game to beat.
mm,
So you asking that question is like asking, why is the character Ironhead the hardest character to beat?
mm, mm.
It's the same question value.
Got you.
And the reason is because it's programmed that way.
Mm, mm, mm.
There's no other reason, because if we living in a holographic simulation, we living in a program.
Got you.
And if we living in a program, we got to continuously upgrade the software in order for the program to remain current. It's the same with computers. It's the same with the human mind. Our human minds is reduced to lesser thinking with base gossip in order to keep us from ever thinking about more complex questions, and they make us think that we wrong if we ask questions in the society that go against the standard or the norm.
Mm, definitely, definitely. How long does this program, Big Mama, allow this program to go on? Like we say, we keep going through these cycles: the age of Kali, the let's say the age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces. Then the civilization rises, civilization falls again. Then it rises again and falls again. does this go on for infinity? Does Big Mama allow this universal program to go on to infinity, or do you think does this eventually end according to the ancient texts?
It's a training simulation.
Mm,
Okay, so when you go to the laws of Mott, we know that the whole goal is to find the balance,
mm,
right? Now, if what happens to a star when it loses its balance in real life, according to our understanding of astrology?
what happens?
It goes supernova,
Mm, mm,
right? It can no longer hold on to its own energy.
mm,
In the human form, we learning how to control our energy in an accelerating learning program
mm, mm,
by going through a couple of lifetimes of refining the balancing mechanisms from different angles, right? That's being influenced by different angels,
mm, mm,
right? And they are teaching you how to control your light body matrix. And you once you do that, you become your own neutron star
mm,
in the galaxy, and you become the god in that galaxy universe you create. And to do it all over again to determine um how to refine the balancing of the overall universe in the end.
mm,
So when we look at the polarization of outer space, we're looking at something called the red shift and the blue shift.
mm, mm,
One is drawing things ever closer to the center, and another is pulling everything furthest to its outer reaches,
mm,
right? They
mm,
call it the red shift and the blue shift.
mm,
It's taking place at simultaneously in the same matrix.
mm,
So this creates the two opposing forces, and you need two opposing fixed points in order to establish the base for making the hologram. And they have to be able to to scan, um, for lack of a better way of explaining it, longitude to latitude, and from prime meridian to prime meridian, like an X-ray, right? And then you look at it externally as from us outside of the creation in order to know how you should perceive your inner world by looking inward, then looking back out. It's a comparative analysis of your inner development of your own personal soul so that you can purify your ego and become more um, like it's like graduating high school going to university, right? When you awaken in the matrix, now you graduated. Once you graduate, now you go to university for higher education. And in the meantime, you have a period between the two where you enjoy your graduation gifts before you go to university, right? So you have your graduation party, you hang out with your family for about 6 months or a year, and then you go off to university,
mm,
right? It's the same way when you wake up from consciousness levels. You graduate, then you have a graduation ceremony. In some people's life, it come across as a quinceanera, a coming out ceremony for the princess in the Latin community,
mm,
or a sweet 16 coming out. So she's passed two cycles of life at 14 of 7 years. And then she evaluated for from 12 to 24 months by the elder women to determine when she's functionally fit to be presented into the society as a celebration. When they approve her, she have her ceremony and she is celebrated. right? Because she made it to the through the first two cycles of life. Now she's going into the cycle that requires greater accountability and awareness of the self. Only they erase part of the training methods out of the equation so that they don't have the same family building qualities that they had in times past, right? So we have to restore all that stuff back by putting everything back in its proper position because you shifting the matrix from the microcosm and it's trickling back up to the macrocosm, and then it's going to balance the two out.
Mm. Rod, how long would you say who we call black people, how long have we been down here on Earth? I
Ever
hear,
since ever since Earth been here.
how long would you say that is?
Well, it depends on the terms of years, and it depends on what uh at which period it wasn't always Earth.
What was it?
At one time, it was the great water planet called Tiamat,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of the water from the planet, when the asteroid belt was knocked from it, it took a lot of water from the planet that went out through what we call the South Pole, right? And the ice shelf is not an ice wall, it's a shelf. And there's a civilization under it that when the calamity came, drew the water over the civilization and flash froze them, right? During World War II, through going into the archives in Tibet. And in Tibet, they have certain archives that if he was able to reach certain levels of adept understanding, they obligated by universal law to reveal that secret.
Mm.
So when he was coming through the Thule Society, he was looking for the key to where the ancients were still present on Earth because their energy signature never left,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when we figure that out, it's like we doing the rescue in the video game of the ancient ones. Now, we didn't always look physiologically the same, and we wasn't always brown. We used to be shades of blue and green because we were surviving off monoatomic platinum group metals,
Mm-hmm.
which changed the conversion in the carbon. The conversion of the carbon is based on iron now, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to magnesium. So it's an iron copper fusion in the metabolic rate, in the energy conversion. When we used to be more like chlorophyll, our skin color was varying shades of green and blue according to the monoatomic chemical that was most prominent in the system or most active. So it's like they was putting a supercomputer, which is the DNA, into its optimum function. We used to materialize at will into the physical form, and that's why you can't find us in a lot of the fossil records.
Mm.
We didn't have death. Death is a construct of the 3D by the chaos beings that came in as the rogue element, or what we would call him the problem child in the school.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere they go, they starting some shit with all of the good kids. So none
Mm-hmm.
of the good kids can't get a decent education because they getting bullied by the problem kid.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
law of nature say adapt. That means that even in this scenario, we don't have to like it, but we have to learn from it in order to overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we get the imposters out.
Mm-hmm.
When we say get the imposters out, we talking about getting out all of the problem children that corrupted the workings of the system. So
Mm-hmm.
if we was playing the video game It's like somebody, like you sitting there playing your video game, having fun, and your big uncles come in and just start attacking your character on the game so that you can't never win,
Mm. Mm.
right? So you always getting shot in Fortnite by friendly fire.
You know, I'm curious, Rod, when we talk about, you know, these entities and aliens.
Have you ever heard of Dwight D. Eisenhower?
The president, yeah, 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 yeah.
You
I
ever
heard
heard
about
of,
galactic council or
right?
something like that, right?
Yeah. You ever heard of Valiant Thor?
No.
Valiant Thor was the Venusian, that means he was from Venus,
Mm.
that lived 3.5 years in the White House during the Eisenhower administration as an advisor.
And he was from Venus.
Yeah.
Mm.
And during the Eisenhower administration is where the Galactic Council intervened and created something called the Military Industrial Complex in order to establish something called the Leviathan Force.
Mm. Boy, you got to explain this to me, brother.
The American military has a Operation Leviathan Force that is the blueprint for the Galactic Council to reclaim the world from the tyranny of what we now know today to be called the deep state, that was controlled by something called archons. And the queen of the archons would dwell in the basement of the Vatican and give her edicts to the Pope. And so the archons is the rulers in secret, and they are the ones that's pulling the strings behind the scenes. So we have to read all of the symbolism in order to see what they're doing. I kind of got off track to where I was going with
Oh no,
that.
no, no, no. You going? It's perfect. Go ahead, brother. Yeah, go ahead, brother. Yeah.
hmm Okay, so now the orders come in reverse down, and it involves the monetary system.
Mm.
It involves the political system, and the political system is a game of public checkers played in the presence of the public to distract them from the man behind the curtain. And the man behind the curtain don't want to be seen, because if the people seen the man behind the curtain, they'll rebel,
Mm.
because he'll turn out to be a computer,
Mm. Mm.
and it's an artificial intelligence,
Mm.
which takes us back to the video game aspect. We in the simulator and our avatars taking everything too personal in order to wake up in the matrix. My dumb ass took both the red and the blue pill. So now I'm wide the fuck awake in the matrix trying to tell y'all how this motherfucker works,
Mm.
right? So the stage show that is politics is the way that they put in the public domain their orders and their rules under the pretense of the people making up the orders and the rules, right? And they use admiralty law as the mean to apply the appearance of legitimacy by the paperwork. Our people are not asking the simplest question possible about our current circumstances and condition, and we don't know why it don't make sense that they're not asking. Before 1492, we didn't have no prisons over here. The first prison built over here was built in Philadelphia in the 1800s, so they're not even 200 years old.
Wow.
So before the prisons over here, what was we doing to keep us from need anything called the prison,
Right. Right.
right? Because the people from the land We know how to respect each other's boundaries and live in harmony all across the land. But the ones that's not from the land cause mischief and bloodshed all over the land, hoping that they can confuse the heirs and claim it as abandoned property off the eminent domain at the close of the age because we failed to do our part. So the application of higher law becomes required to override the onslaught of the legal fiction called the corporation or the nation. So if you're looking at how the matrix plays out, it's like telescoped in on itself in cycles.
Mm, mm,
By like this conversation interrupt the cycle for so many people, it allowed them to actually see the fabric of the story that's being told. That's grid talk.
mm,
Because you have to be able to use the stories to strike the proper vibration in order to awaken their own memory so they don't require your information, they require the self awakening,
mm,
right? This is us coming into that balance that's required to operate within the matrix without being victims as a extra in the video game.
right, right, right. Rod, you ever took DMT or shrooms or any of that? You ever took any of that to tap in?
Yeah. When I found I found a book called Breaking Open the Head
Mm,
about a shaman's search for enlightenment through hallucinogenics.
mm,
And in our culture, we did ayahuasca ceremonies, we did toadstool ceremonies. They used the venom of the toad ceremonies, and the other side of the water, the Afar Inca, they used the Ibogaine ceremonies, and they got a different psilocybin over there that they use that Shaka would use with the THC. All
mm,
of the organic tribes are have been cannabis consuming people, and that's why they banned it because the ability for us to psychically communicate when we smoke cannabis is increased 1,000-fold.
mm, mm,
So it goes back to the history of the assassin.
mm,
The word assassin, if you do the etymology, comes from a Persian word hashashin.
mm,
Hashashin is those who are high on the hash, right? And the hash is made out of the marijuana plant by condensing the chemicals in it into a more where you can get a heavier dose of those same chemicals.
right.
Now you got something called the endocannabinoid system. That's your auric field or your spirit body.
Mm,
We used to use the THC as a means to strengthen the auric field in order to give us more spiritual control if we gift it,
mm,
right? Because when you are have the spiritual gifts and you haven't learned how to control them, you can inadvertently cause major problems without knowing it to other people
mm,
because you can interfere with their energy output input cycles,
mm,
right? So we always pass in psychic messages, but only a few of us is tuned in to the psychic channel to a high enough degree to catch them.
like I said, that the psychic channel, you got to be tuned into the psychic channel to catch these messages.
Right. So the receiver For the psychic messages don't come in through the brain.
mm,
They come in through the heart
mm,
as a telepathic message,
mm,
right? And then it shoots the chakra shoots the question through your crown chakra to prime creator. When prime creator answers, it comes in as what we call a download. The reason we call it that is because right here on the right side of your head, you have a part of the brain called the interior gyrus. And it's known to be activated when spiritual people are receiving spiritual messages, right? So our elders knew this and they encoded it in the art and in the architecture. So if we lose track of the oral tradition, we don't have to rely on what they wrote on the paper because they wrote on the paper to give us the appearance of legitimacy, right? So anybody can be the leader as long as they look the part. But when the real leader comes, all the rest of them have to take a back seat because the leader in our culture is the one who knows the way, right? So in let's say in YouTube culture, if I wanted somebody to guide me on how to develop my YouTube channel, I come to Brother Rich. Hey, Brother Rich, can you show me how this done? In that case, you then taking the lead and you also becoming a mentor and a teacher to a mentor and a teacher. So we just switch positions as you explain to me how to develop a YouTube channel. Because you know the way already. And the verification that I'm right is in the fact that you have an open and functional YouTube channel, right? And you have a lot of people that listen to your channel. Now, I hear some people complain about certain guests and they not understanding journalism to the degree that you understand journalism. You can't only have the people that I like, right? Sometimes you got to have people that I don't like to give an opposing viewpoint in order to make sure that the viewpoint I gave was even correct. Because if it's not challenged, how are you going to know it's right? Right? So this is what we be exchanging ideas, even under hostile circumstances, would look like an adversarial position, right? So it's not. It still has to be done because the information has to be challenged in order for it to prove itself. Because they say the truth don't need no support, right? They say the truth is like a lion. Turn that motherfucker loose and he'll defend himself, right? So you tell them, don't argue with me, argue with the receipts, and then they get mad. Emotionalism. That's what you call intellectual masturbation. If you into an intellectual pursuit, you can't be um, only because you want it to be that way. You know, I always go back and look over my information. Sometimes I find errors. And when I find an error, it's going to either tell me two things: correct the error or find the wisdom in the error. If it say find the wisdom in the error, then I begin to look at the things that surrounded the error that made me create it, which shows me a Freudian slip, which was a message from my higher self that's overriding what my lower self is saying in order to get my attention on the topic that need to be discussed. So I started to learn to read how my mind processed information and communicate it back to me. That's part of your shadow work as well. It's more of the more pleasing side of shadow work, I should say, too. Because when you start to understand the difference in the communication with yourself and spirit, you also get to differentiate your communication with your parents. Because y'all going to be eternally tied in the heart chakra through this same thing we mentioned earlier called love. And that's what my mama used to always tell me, son, you got to honor both your mama and your daddy, that your days may be long on this earth. That means don't take sides in our bullshit. Find a way to make it better for your children than we made it for you, because we made it better for you than our parents made it for us. So it's passing the baton forward by teaching you how to stay in the middle and just follow what's right. And there's never a wrong time to do what's right. Free Larry Hoover. Motherfuckers. Free Chief Malik Angel Bay. Motherfuckers. All the political prisoners. Asada Shakur. Let her come home. Hands off Asada. We
Indeed.
ain't playing.
Got
We,
that.
we, we dead serious, Rich. We dead fucking serious. Hands the fuck off. Look, what
Yeah.
my man say, we might fight amongst each other, but I promise you this, we'll burn this bitch down
Down,
just as quick.
gets pissed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tupac.
so we
Rest in
ain't
peace.
playing.
Rest in
We
peace,
cut, we
Tupac.
back for everything they owe.
Uh, talk to him, brother.
We back for everything they owe because we won the game. We conquered the invader who came to conquer us, who swore that we would be their eternal enemy and they would lie in wait for us at every turn,
Mm-hmm.
making secret oaths to kill the kings, the princes, and the people of the land,
Mm-hmm.
putting it in the public domain, revealing that they declared us imbeciles in law by unum sanctum papal bull,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
by papal decree,
Mm-hmm.
instituting something called the white man's burden.
Mm-hmm.
And the white man's burden was to civilize the heathen and wherever he found him in the world in order that they can spread Christendom around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the cause to spread Christendom around the world sprang from the ambitions of Emperor Constantine when he created the church in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now we know what they did. It's a wrap.
Mm.
We back for every fucking thing they owe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Every tribe from the earth tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We all organic from the earth, but we all slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
So you have your Mongolians, you have your Huns, you have your Aryavedics, right? You have your Ainu, right? You have your Yin people, right? So when we start going around the world naming all these tribes, you got your Norsemen, your Scotsmen, your Britsmen. They all humans from the earth tribes, and things was done to corrupt the earth tribes by external beings coming from other places. This is what you call a breach in the matrix. The breach in the matrix is the virus in the matrix that was Mr. Smith. He was originally created to not have a bias in his performance of the function in the matrix. But he some kind of way artificial intelligence became slightly conscious enough to want to subjugate, right? And that made it become a virus, a parasite of real.
Indeed. Hey Rod, a couple of questions before. First of all, before I get to the questions, they've been asking. I didn't want to interrupt you, but been asking about your Cash App. It's capital
Capital A,
SIKAPE. Yeah,
capital A
capital
P E.
APE. All right, so I'm putting for those asking. I seen y'all asking in the chat, but I didn't want to interrupt the brother. The brother's Cash App, Rod Hayes, dollar sign, capital SIK. capital APE. For those who appreciate the brother's work and want to send a donation his way, that is the way to do it. We're gonna get to a couple of Q&A and then we're gonna get out of here, family. But I thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We got about 3,000 people. Thanks all of y'all for tuning in tonight and listening. Rod Hayes, what damn, I done forgot the question I was about to ask you. I had a question on my mind. I was gonna ask you. Damn, just forgot what I was about to ask you about. Let me get to some Q&A. I want to ask you about what's going on in Europe. We keep hearing about the earth changes that's happening, the downloads that's coming from the sun, the solar flares, this, that. Now there's reports in the news about over 1,900 people dropping dead in Spain because of the heat wave. What's up with the sun, number one? And what's up? What's getting ready to go down with this energy coming from the sun, my brother? Because this is intense right now.
I done an update on Dr. G when I got done doing a task for Big Mama.
Mm, mm.
Soon as I came back from the task, she called me when I walked through the bus door coming from the bus station. And I was telling her about the cycles. Okay, so the Piscean age was the silver cycle, or what we call a lunar cycle. And it is the cycle that facilitates what you call ice ages. We had more than one ice age on Earth, which can be confirmed by the geological surveys. And these ice ages come in the lunar cycles, but when the sun cycle come in, it ushers in what's called the golden age. It's called the golden age for several different reasons, but one of them is that the UVBs and the UVAs, right, the UV rays that's coming in is doing something to the DNA of very specific groups of people. And as the temperatures gonna rise, they can rise as high as on an average of 20 degrees around the world, or as little as 3 to 4 degrees. But it's a temperature increase that comes with a different exposure to the solar rays, and then there's another